All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ruchaha, Kwadash. I want to give double honors to head apostle and others, a great millstone who rule well and teach well, peace and blessing, teach sincere Akim that are pushing this truth all over the four corners of the earth, week in and week out, in all truth and sincerity. I want to do a quick video on this video that was sent to me by the brother Korab in the chat. The title of this video is Daryl Davis on Black People Inventing Rock and Roll and How White People Popularized It, Part 5. And I'll also put the link in the description box as well, and you can check it out and check out the other parts. This is the only part I watched was Part 5, which he goes into Otis Blackwell and one other particular songwriter, / performer, and how Otis Blackwell was actually writing these songs that these rock and roll artists, were performing. And he wasn't getting, his due pay for the work that he was doing and the contribution he put in, for these certain music genres, so to speak. And let's go ahead and jump right into the video, and I'm gonna stop the video periodically as well, and hopefully these pop-ups won't keep popping up. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Sure, they both have a lot of unacknowledged contributions to rock and roll. Let's start with Otis Blackwell. Otis Blackwell was a songwriter and a singer. Cruel. That was Elvis Presley's biggest hit of all time, written by a black man named Otis Blackwell. I had the pleasure. And he also wrote All Shook Up, Return to Sender, Paralyzed, Such an Easy Question, all #1 hits for Elvis Presley. And he was brilliant, And
these #1 hits, were written by Otis Blackwell, which, I believe that, Elvis Presley was a Jake, but and then this goes on today as well, man. The majority of these artists, they're using ghostwriters. They're not writing their own lyrics, even though they take credit for the lyrics that they are singing. The majority of them are not putting the work, the time, and the effort into actually sitting down and creating these albums and these performances, that they do on stage and that you hear. So this still goes on, this very day.
And things like that. He stayed, where he was. And
I don't know what's wrong with this YouTube. This shit been doing this all day. Salaki, bear with me one moment.
And wrote songs and composed music. And then one day he...
All right, let's see here. Okay.
He decided that he wanted to come out and perform again. When he first started, he was a performer. But then he figured he was taught by Doc Thomas, another great songwriter, that he could make a lot of money writing and selling songs, pitching songs. So he began, when I can just write a song, let somebody else do it, and I get paid for it. So Otis Blackwell was a wealthy man. However, he should have had Presley manager. This is not Elvis Presley's fault. This is the doings of his manager, a fellow named Colonel Tom Parker. Yeah. So Colonel Parker. Now there were, Elvis had other songwriters too, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. Lieber and Mike Stoller were I should say, Lennon and McCartney were the Lieber and Stoller of the 1960s. Okay, the Lieber and Stoller were some of the greatest duo songwriters, team of songwriters in the 1950s. Wrote a lot of songs for Elvis, the Drifters. Now, Elvis never wrote a song in his life. Okay, understand also, Colonel Parker, who was Elvis's manager, was getting 50% of Elvis Presley. Now, that's unheard of in the industry, right? An agent gets anywhere between 10 and 20%. A manager gets anywhere between 20 and 35%. Colonel Parker was getting 50% of Elvis. Yes.
And that still goes on, this day, and even worse in the music industry. These rappers, these musical artists, these even into the celebrity world, the movie industry, in sports as well. How the media portrays these musicians and their wealth is very, very falsified. And yeah, they might be worth that on paper, but their managers, the people they work under, are taking a very, very large cut of that profit. Okay. And ultimately they're just being used. You could say they're being pimped. Okay. That get them in these 360 deals, these contracts, and then they get them stuck in these contracts and persuade them to sign on that dotted line, and they think they're going to become rich and wealthy, but ultimately they're just going to become used, and they're really not as wealthy as or rich as they're portrayed to be, or they could be, because they're getting percentages taken out that are given to their managers, that are given to this, that are given to this, that, they're stripped from their royalties, etc. And ultimately the company is the one that benefits off the artists. They take in insurance out on these artists, and it goes, and the list goes on and on and on, man. Okay. Let's continue on. There's a couple more points I want to touch on.
Okay, so you write a song, you're Otis Blackwell, you write a song, and Elvis Presley records it. You have to give Elvis 50% of the writing credit. So he gets.
You see him on the right. Otis Blackwell was born in February 16, 1931. He died in 2002. Was an American songwriter whose work influenced rock and roll. So he had a heavy influence in rock and roll. It says his compositions include Fever, Great Balls of Fire, Breathless, and these are all songs that these so-called white people, hey man, these are classics to them. These are songs that you go to some old Edomite's house, who's 70, 80 years old, he's got these on record. Okay, on the turntable, or even after that, cassette tapes, and they highly regard these particular songs. Okay. And they're probably ignorant to the fact that Jake actually wrote these songs, but that's neither here nor there. It says he wrote Great Balls of Fire, Breathless, Don't Be Cruel, All Shook Up, Return to Sender, and Handyman. Okay, as well as others. And I believe Otis Blackwell, yeah, he's from Brooklyn. Okay. So let's jump back in this real quick.
Royalties for something he didn't do, and then Colonel Parker gets 50% of Elvis. So it's like 25-25. Now, Elvis was not savvy to all this, and that was not his doing. But that's how Colonel Parker treated Otis Blackwell. And I once asked Otis, when we were together performing and all that, or just practicing or whatever, I said, why would you let them do that? He said, Daryl, you have to understand something. Back in the 1950s, it was hard for a black man to make a living, let alone playing rock and roll, because rock and roll was not accepted by the establishment, the white establishment, because it was black music and people thought it was corrupting white youth.
You heard what he said. rock and roll was considered black music back in this time, man. I believe this is the 60s. Don't quote me, but I believe this is the 60s era. Rock and roll was considered black music. Okay. And basically they basically use Jake, what he's going into, to push and uh, you know, they use Jake's talent, to fuel, that music industry at that day and age. Okay, but they did not give Jake the credit. Okay, and they basically popularized. Okay, you know, uh, off of Jake's creativity. Because like the scripture says, man, we are the salt of the earth, man. All right, from all the music genres, even country music, that all goes back to Jake, man. Okay, America would be very, very boring if it wasn't for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that were in this place, man. Okay, the whole earth, man. You know, hey, man, these you got these Edomites that don't particularly, like Jake. All right, uh, um, on a certain level, but they'll sure go watch him, in that sports arena. They'll go listen to him at a concert. They'll buy an album. They'll watch him on TV and laugh, this, that, and so forth. They're allowed their kids to go to idolize these particular people, and then they really don't even like Jake like that. Okay, because we got that salt, we have that flavor. All right, which Esau, he ain't got that. Okay,
Youth and all that kind of crazy nonsense, right? So he says it was hard enough to make a living as a black man, playing this music that was unacceptable, but also 50% of Elvis Presley was a lot of money, and everything he gave Elvis, went to number one. So, but he would have had 50% more. Now, when he wrote "Great Balls of Fire" for Jerry Lee Lewis and another friend of mine, and he got full writing credit for that.
Where did he learn? Did he ever break down? Like I'm always
and the thing is, see, Esau, a lot of the times he won't allow you to get royalties off these songs because, I mean, until this day, Great Balls of Fire and some of these songs he's naming, if you had the royalties to these songs, or even percentage of the royalties, yeah, you'd be very, very wealthy. These songs are used, frequently in top movies, man. Okay, top movies, and commercials. The list goes on and on. So to have those royalties is, and that's another thing Jake don't really understand. How he really doesn't understand how money works and what it takes, to become wealthy. Okay, Esau understands these things, and he knows Jake is naive and ignorant to these different particular things, and he capitalizes off the strength of that. Okay,
interested in hearing people's writing process and also their process of becoming a great writer. Did he ever break that down to you?
No, not in specifics, but we were talking in general, and he had teenagers in mind, America's youth, and so he wrote to that, to that degree.
But that's wild though. Like as he distanced himself in age, how was he still able to write things to connect with teenagers?
Well, because he was a teenager himself at one time, and there's certain things that are common to teenagers. Love for one thing, chasing girls, all that kind of thing. And Chuck Berry would do the same thing. And Chuck Berry was the oldest of the rock and rollers.
Berry, now he's another legend that is kind of, I don't want to say he's written out of history, but it seems like he doesn't get as much acknowledgement and praise as he should.
That is correct. Just like most black musicians. Now, Chuck Berry is the inventor of rock and roll. He would never tell you that, but he is. There was no rock and roll before Chuck Berry.
Okay, so he said Jay was the inventor of rock and roll. All right. Hey man, look at the stance, bro. Hey, yo, when you watch the these rock music videos, or you see these, you know, these rock bands, so to speak. Hey man, that's a classic stance right there, man. That they all do, and they're performing at their concerts, etc. Man, the squatting over with the legs, with the stance, with them going in. Hey man, they got that from Jake, man. You know, Esau's nothing but a copycat. He's nothing but a copycat. He stole everything from Jake, man. A lot of when you go into hardcore slavery, a lot of the inventions Esau was taking credit for were created by us, man. But he was portraying it that it was his invention, okay, and he was reaping all the benefits off of what the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans were doing, and we created a lot of things. We had a lot of inventions which are still used till this day, okay. But Esau's not going to come out and say these particular things, man. All right. So Chuck Berry, Charles Edward Anderson Berry, was born in October 8, 1926, died in 2017, was an American singer, guitarist, and songwriter who pioneered rock and roll. Okay. It says nicknamed the father of rock and roll. All right. He refined and developed rhythm and blues into the major elements that made rock and roll distinctive, with songs such as, I'll read a couple of these: Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, etc. It says writing lyrics that focus on teen life and consumerism. All right. See, and Esau took that and ran with that, man. It says, and developing a music style including guitar solos and showmanship. And that's what you see in these rock bands, man. You had the guitar solos. You had a certain type of mannerism they would have in different, rock musics that captivated the crowd and got the crowd involved. They all got that from this guy, man. They all got that from Jake. It says Berry was a major influence on subsequent rock music. Okay. So Esau, he got everything from Jake, man. All right. Let's go to Matthew 5:13 real quick. It says, ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its favor, wherewith shall it be salted? So we are the salt of the earth, man. Okay. And these other nations, they don't have the flavor. And also these Edomites, they don't have the flavor that Jake's got. And Esau knows that. He knows that he needs us. He needs the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans to make things cool, to make things hip, to make things interesting, to captivate people's minds, to also persuade people. All right. He needs our talents. He needs our swagger, so to speak. Okay. The way we talk, the way we act, the way we move, the way we think. He needs that. And he's used that, all right, to popularize things and also to persuade people to do different particular things. Okay. From religion, okay, to other doctrines, to entertainment, to music. All right. To even commerce, buying and selling, getting people interested in buying things because of who they put on the forefront of that. You turn on these commercials and you see, an insurance commercial, and it'll have a predominantly well-known, retired artist. Okay, a Jake artist or a former Jake basketball player telling you to go do this, telling you to go get a Big Mac, telling you to go get some insurance, telling you to buy this. Okay. So they use Jake to persuade the masses. And you best believe Jake's going to be used when this devil pushes this MOTB on a high level, man. All right. They're going to use, that's when you're really going to see Jake being used the most. Okay. To persuade you Israelites into taking that C hip, man. Okay. Hey, they're gonna make it hip, they're gonna make it cool, they're gonna make it fly, they're gonna make it the end thing, And you see how society has shifted. Okay. How one one decade, our people were doing one thing, dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, and then another decade, they're damn near doing the complete opposite. Dressing. Men went from baggy jeans to skinny jeans, went from long shirts to short, damn near belly shirts. Okay, the long chains to the choker chains. Hey, from no purses to purses. I'm talking about the men. Okay, and the list goes on and on. So Esau uses Jake to shift so-called society, so to speak. Let's continue on in this.
Did people record songs before Chuck Berry? Sure, but they weren't rock and roll. All right. Chuck Berry, I played for Chuck Berry for 32 years. Not every gig, but many gigs. And this man was a genius. And geniuses are wired a little different than the normal person. Anybody can say, I play the guitar and I wrote a song and some other person sings my song, and that's great. But how many people can say I invented a genre of music? Like I said, he would never say that, but he did. Beethoven did. Jimi Hendrix did. They came with a whole different genre of music. And back in the day, Black people were not given credit for their inventions or their discoveries, but they were used commercially by everybody. And then, many years later, they began to start getting credit. Also, this new music that Chuck Berry invented, and then along comes Little Richard, who also contributed a lot. Bo Diddley, Fats Domino. These are the creators of the genre rock and roll. Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Bill Haley in the Comets, Buddy Holly, and other great white.
See, and you if you ask these average Edomites, man, especially today's day and age Edomites, they would say rock and roll was started by them. Okay, and rock and roll is quote unquote, white music and this and that, and they, a lot of them look down on hip hop and rap, but little do they know that, the very music they listen to, the very genre of music that they listen to was created by Jake, man. All right, let's go to Jeremiah 10:16. It says, the portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things. Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. Okay. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man, are not like these other nations, and they're not like these Edomites, man. All right. We're very, very different. Okay. And these other nations and these so-called white people, they recognize that, man. They recognize that there's something different in us. Hey, remember when the NBA was all white, man? They had to implement certain restrictions and so-called laws on that basketball court when Jake started being put in the league, man, as well as different sports as well. They had to add lines, they had to add boxes, they had to add certain amount of seconds. You could do this and do that. They had to add rules, man. Because Jake was in there stunting, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, when these people go to see a professional basketball game, man, they go to see Jake, okay? And a lot of these, a lot of these basketball players that, might look like Edomites, and the majority of them, in other sports as well, the majority of them are Jake, man, okay?
White performers of this genre, they're the ones who popularized it. They did not invent it; they popularized it because they had access to more powerful radio stations. In order to sell records, you have to be heard by the public, and black radio stations did not have a lot of wattage. They're exactly the neighborhood. Whereby these white stations, and this was before FCC regulations, they could broadcast all the way across the state into the next state and so forth and so on. It was like unchained territory or something. So the wider your reach, the more people hear it, the more people go to the record store and purchase your record.
How has history of rock and roll been whitewashed, both in literature and in film?
Sure. Oftentimes it's portrayed as a white person's music. Music belongs to everybody. Music is to be shared, but you must give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, well, Esau, that's not how he operates. That's not how he rolls. Okay, he steals identities. you know, he's taking credit for everything, man. Okay, like the scripture says, when a rich man speaketh, hey, they stole it to the clouds, man. Even when you can come out with documentation and proof, even when you have people that were on the scene at these particular times, they're still, perceived as, not telling the truth. Okay, because they're not in that position. Let's go to Micah 2:1 real quick. Matter of fact, let me do something real quick. Let's go to real quick. Bear with me. Let's go to, I think it's Sirach. Sirach 13. This is Sirach 13, and let's go down to verse 23. It says, let's start in verse 21. It says, a rich man beginning to fall is held up of his friends, but a poor man being down is thrust away by his friends. When a rich man is fallen, he hath many helpers. He speaketh things not to be spoken, and yet men justify him. All right, let's read that one more time. It says, when a rich man is fallen, he hath many helpers. He speaketh things not to be spoken, and yet men justify him. And that's how this devil is speaking, man. He's because of his position, because of his power and his control, people justify, all right, the things that, not only the things that he says, but the things that he does concerning his actions. It says, the poor man slipped, and yet they rebuked him too. He spake wisely and could have no place. All right. Because, and you see that, we see that heavy out in the highways and byways, man, because we don't have certain credentials, because we didn't do this and do that, and we're not coming in a certain format. A lot of our people, do not believe us. Okay. Just off the strength of that, verse 23, or I should say, will refuse to even listen. You give us the time of day. All right. But that's okay. Verse 23, it says, when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he saith. Okay. Esau, being in the power seat position, has capitalized off these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Okay. It says, when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he saith. They extol it to the clouds. But if the poor man speak, they say, what fellow is this? And if he stumble, they will help to overthrow him. Okay. And our people, contrary to popular belief, are still in captivity. You're still a slave, man. All right. No matter how much money you get, what status you obtain in society, you're still a slave, man. If these niggas in Hollywood could actually and would actually tell you the truth, they would agree and they would say the same things that we're saying. Okay. They would actually come out and tell you all the things that they have to do, how they're expendable. Okay. And how it's not what it seems. All right. And they have to abide by, the laws, so to speak, of the realm that they're in, quote unquote, being Hollywood. Let's go to Micah 2:1 real quick, and we can wrap it up. And I'll put the link in the description box as well. I'm gonna watch these other parts to this video. And the title of the video is what you see on your screen: Daryl Davis on Black people inventing rock and roll and how white people popularized it. Let's go to Micah 2:1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. All right. Now we bring the scripture out a lot, because Esau's still in that power seat position. So he's able to do these particular things because he's in power and he's been given that power, by Yahweh Shai, man. All right. So until this devil is taken out of that power seat positions, these things are going to continue and get a lot worse. All right. This man's always going to be involved in evil, mischief, lies, sorcery, witchcraft. Okay. He says one thing, but guess what? Another thing is what really happened. Okay. It says, and they covet fields and take them away by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, and even a man and his heritage. Okay. Hey man, they're portraying that they're us. He's destroyed all the true or I should say he's whitewashed a lot of the true images. He's painted the likeness of his own image. He's basically saying he's God. He's basically saying, with the Most High and his Son, they look like me. They look like us. They're part of our nation, right? He's got his people over in our land, portraying to be, the Israelites, man. Okay. But like the scripture says, you can't do anything against the truth, but for the truth. Okay. And this man's being exposed on a high level, from all different angles, man. And he knows it. That's why he's scurrying, to hopefully, and maybe be able to succeed and not be stripped of his power. Okay. Or try to rewrite history, to go back in time to change things, which are going to happen in the future. But that's not going to be able to happen. Your judgments, it's already been written, Esau. Your judgment's already been set. Your kingdom's going to be taken down. And guess what? You're going to go into slavery into the hands of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, But hey, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'll leave the link in the description box as well. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakaha, Kodash. That want us to add Apostle Nellis, a great millstone, root well, and teach well, peace and blessing to you, sincere Akim, that are pushing this truth all over the four corners of the earth, week in and week out in our truth and sincerity. To the next time, Shalom.